So, Half-Life Alyx. We're going to talk about it finally. I've been holding this off for weeks because I had so many technical difficulties trying to get my Oculus Quest to work with it.
And as always, please like, subscribe, and bang that bell, because the world's crazy and that bell will save us. I swear it. Bang it. Bang it good.
The first time I got into it, I was just very, very, very impressed with how well they took advantage of the controls that you have at your disposal. And this game, even in Oculus Quest, looks really good. It's not like pixel perfect and like beautiful and like full of HDR and all that stuff, but like the game just looks really impressive. And there's a lot of detail to this environment and all the detail you can interact with. And I like that you can pick up anything. And like there was a paint can that I found on the floor, and I picked that up and I threw it off the ledge and looked down, and it like splattered all over the floor. I was like, yes, that's what I wanted to see. I wanted to see paint splatter. You see those effects where like there's glass and you want to break the glass. Well, you throw something into it, it'll break the glass, and you can start banging your gun against the glass and like chip away at more glass, and like the shards like break off from the glass, and you can even pick up the glass. And like just all this, the stuff that you want to be able to do that you haven't been able to do much in VR, is you can do it in this game. And that to me is just a feat in itself. The way that they set this up, like this game is set between Half-Life 1 and Half-Life 2. You play as Alex Vance, who is the character that, if anybody's played Half-Life 2, she's with you. She works with you closely. Her dad, Eli Vance, is a scientist, worked at the Black Mesa space. In this game, it seems like our goal is to get to Eli and then get to Nova Prospect, which is where he's at. And so that's kind of what I'm doing right now. But I'm going through the quarantine zone at the beginning, and then you go into some other areas. And I don't want to spoil anything, but there's a lot of cool things that you run into. You meet some characters that I didn't think you'd meet. That was really exciting. Very amazing to see some of the visual effects in here. Like there was a part where I walk in this room, and there's this weird, like, I don't know, magic-y stuff, scientific-y stuff happening where there's like this green glowing stuff everywhere, and it's just like floating cardboard in front of you. There's just a ton of floating cardboard, and it's like a dimly lit room, so all you can see is the light and the reflections off the cardboard from like an exterior light source behind it, and the way that illuminates the whole entire space just looked incredible. But then walking forward into that area and then looking around you as you're like amidst all of this floating cardboard with like this glowing green stuff everywhere. This game has the traditional stuff from Halo or Half-Life. So you have like your head crabs, you have your head crab zombies, you have the combine soldiers, you have the man-hack things that come after you and try and slice your face off. All these different things. It's so fun to like go up to a freaking head crab, shoot it, and then reach down and pick it up and like look at the guts and shit inside. And it's just like so disgusting. And then throw it across the way. And like the gravity gloves are a new mechanic that they added to this game to add that visceralness of virtual reality. And the gravity gloves are brilliant. The way that they design these things, I absolutely adore how they, like, every aspect of it is so perfect for virtual reality. And that you have, like, on one hand, you can hold down your trigger, and you can you select your guns by, or your inventory is, you hold down the left thumbstick and raise your hand up, left or down, to select it. So that's like super intuitive to just like navigate through and find what you're looking for. And then reloading is, as I think you mentioned on our previous podcast, was like realistic. And like I love that it's like that, because it adds so much more to the intensity of the moment. Because there was a part where I'm in a room and there's like 3 headcrab zombies coming after me, and then like headcrabs themselves. And here I am stumbling, trying to like figure out how to like, oh shit, I got to press this button, and I got to reach in my backpack and get the clip in, and I got to pull it back, cock it back, and like, oh shit, he's coming. And I'm like popping the guy in the head and like barely get it off. And I'm like, oh shit, I got to get my shotgun out. Oh, there's only 2 bullets. I'm going to die. That effect of just like loading the shotgun was so cool. Like whenever I first did that, I was like, holy shit. I press a button, it opens a chamber, I reach my backpack, pull out 2 shells, plop them in, cock it back, and then I can start popping people again. And like I'm super excited to get further into the game, because I'm starting to get in the rhythm of these motions that I'm doing, of like, you know, when you have your flashlight out in dark rooms, you use your one hand for the flashlight, which is such a cool idea. like in virtual reality with this one hand with a flashlight, and then you go to like, because I'm left-handed, I'm using my left hand for the gun, and my right hand is the flashlight. So whenever I need to reach for ammo, I reach in my backpack and then the light goes away. I'm like, oh fuck, oh gosh, it's dark. And I go to put it in there and I'm like, just got enough light to where I can see my gun. I'm loading it up and I put my light up again. And I'm like, oh, there's a bad guy. And they're like right in front of you. The design of the game is relatively simple in its design. Like when you're going through the sewers, and I mean, it's very linear. There's not much stuff off. If there is a beaten path you can go off of, it's mostly to find more resources, and then it leads you back into the main path that you were traveling on. And I like that. I think that's the way this design should be with VR, because I don't think there should be too much like branching stuff, because the focus is on like the narrative and then the gameplay moment to moment stuff that's happening, and they need that to be tightly crafted, I think. This early in virtual reality, if they got too far out of it, I think it would lose some of its essence. And then especially the way you're moving, like you don't want to get lost when you're like having to blink to move, because you can't like walk forward, you're blinking from place to place, and that can be kind of troublesome to get used to. But I've got it mostly down now, where I'm like, okay, left trigger to like turn my body around, and then like right trigger to hold to teleport and move relatively quickly. So when I was in those tough moments where like head crab zombies were all around me, I was able to maneuver around and just click to like move around this room, and then find like you can get exploding barrels in the environment, throw them at the head crab zombies, pop it, and then it blows them up. You just got to make sure you don't get close enough to where it blows you up too, because I did that a few times on accident. Yeah. And then some of the puzzles, like I've heard a lot of people say that the puzzles are really annoying, but there's moments where you're going up to like a door and you need to open the door up. So you have this multi-tool device you can pull out, and you stick your multi-tool into the red circle or whatever, and it pops out like a 3D puzzle of some kind. Some of the puzzles, like it's a sphere, and sometimes they have you match colors. So you have to like use one hand to move around the sphere, and the other hand to move your multi-tool to direct dots from different points throughout and like kind of map a course in this sphere. And once you do it correctly, then it opens up the door. And I think it's a really interesting mechanic, but I've heard that as you get through the game, once you've seen it 5 times, you've seen it all, and it gets kind of tedious. But the first time I did each one of those puzzles, I was pretty excited about just how easy it was to figure it out without having to be instructed, because they don't ever give you any instruction in this game whatsoever, like hardly at all, except for like loading your weapon, those kinds of things. But when it came to like figuring out the puzzles, it was pretty much figure it out. But I was able to discover what to do pretty easily. Gun upgrade stations, like I was wondering, what do you do with all this resin that I'm picking up? I know I need it for some reason, but like, what do I do with it? You get to a point where you come to the station, and the way in which you interact with the station is super cool, because you go up to it and you stick your multi-tool in, you do a puzzle, you get the puzzle unlocked, it opens up the multi-tools thing, you pull out your gun, you stick it in the slot for it to register, and then you got this menu where you can see what you need to buy and upgrade things. And then when you go to deposit resin, it pulls out a storage container, and you reach in your backpack and pull out like 5 pieces of resin at a time that are like linked together now, stick it in there 5 pieces at a time to deposit, slide the door closed. So this is all like motions that you're doing in the game, which if you're playing a regular game, they would never do this. It would just be a menu that you're looking at, and that would be the extent of it. You just click and click and click, and it would do it. But the fact that you're in VR, like they can add this extra immersion with reaching your backpack, taking this currency physically out into these slots, and then stick it in to deposit it. That just adds a really cool dynamic that I feel like would not be the same if you're playing in non-virtual reality. A few other things I wanted to call out are the just seeing the enemies up close is really cool, because there was moments where I'm like in this space, and like the first time you see one of those poison head crab things running at you, and you're in that dark room and you shine your light out at it, and there it is, and then it like leaps after you. I'm like, oh my gosh. And then there was another part where they had a head crab that was like a armored head crab, a couple of them. They were behind a chain link fence. I was like, oh, cool. They're behind the chain link fence, and they're trying to leap at me, but they're getting stuck at the chain link fence. And I go around the corner, and there's a gate with a lock on it. So I pop the lock, but I can keep the door closed. So what was really nice about this is that because you're in virtual reality, I can have one hand on the door, the handle to open and close the open and close the gate. So I can like pull the gate open a little bit to reach around with my gun and then pop the guy without having to open the door. So in a typical game, you would have to physically press E and it would either open the door or close the door. And here I can like partially open the door, lean out a little bit, pop, 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 and then do like what you do in real life very, very easily in this game. And I think that is such a cool aspect to it. Like it completely changed my mindset of how I approach different combat scenarios, because I can like crouch below stuff and then walk in and find like a hidden piece of resin, like in a little sewer thing underground or whatever, where I can like, you know, do this situation with the door and like kind of peek in the door, or using, using crates to like stand up on top of stuff and get higher to try and find things that otherwise you couldn't see from like the lower level of the ground. So there's like stuff that's like high up on a shelf. So you have to figure out how to like get up on top of something so you can see the thing and then flick your wrist to pull it in, which is also a great gravity technique, is like the way that you reach out to get things. You just point at it, it highlights, and you flick your wrist back and it comes towards you, and then you click again to grab it with the trigger and it grabs in your hand. And I was doing that like all the time just to see flick, 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 ha, 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 just like going left and right like a madman, just grabbing stuff. And I would just do it. I'd walk in a room and I'd just like grab a bunch of boxes and just see if they shatter and pop out resin or something like that. So It was everywhere I went, I was just like flicking stuff towards me. And man, I'm just beyond impressed with this game. It's definitely like, it's gonna be really hard to go back to some of these older VR games I was playing, just because of how much they took advantage of the VR space. There's things that I've seen in here that I never even thought being possible in a virtual reality game. And I really, really appreciate that. And just the fact that they've made a game that is a full version game where you're using the blink to teleport feature, which, you know, is just something in VR that I feel like is not going to go away anytime soon. But the fact that they made that so intuitive in this, and that you can customize how it works, so you can do it to prevent nausea or whatever, like is really, really nice. Like having Russell in your ear all the time and how he's always talking to you. Like you can see the Firewatch, Campo Santo developers in here, because like him in your ear explaining stuff to you in tense moments, like about a club sandwich, how to make it when you first enter in a dark space, you can't see anything. And he's like, let me tell you about club sandwiches back in the day of Earth when it was not falling apart. They did this and they were super big and super long. It's just like cool having that. It made me remind myself of when we had I think it was Delilah was her name or whatever in Firewatch, that was always in your ear, and that was such a cool experience to have that comedic relief as you're playing through this game. So
I totally forgot about that. Like because I talked about it when I reviewed it, like first going that scary thing and he's always talking to you, and it like really helps out because it's so quiet and eerie in those dark places, and you know he's just talking about awkward stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't even think about that for Firewatch.
Yeah, that was definitely, you can definitely see some of that. But man, I'm really glad Campo Santos, like those guys, Sean Vanneman and stuff like that, because he's the lead. I think he was the lead writer on Half-Life Alyx, or one of the lead writers. So like you can see it because he worked on the first Walking Dead, he worked on Firewatch. Like he was the guy that worked on a lot of that writing, and it definitely comes through here. Like it's so real, and there's like these stories that just really don't have any resonance to the overall narrative, but they're important to define this character's personality. You know, like it helps to define that character better, and I think that's all really awesome to see. So I highly recommend, if somebody can afford to have Valve Index, pick up a Valve Index, because that's probably the way this should be played. But if you end up with an Oculus Quest, shoot me an email. I'll tell you how to save all the frustrations that I went through and tell you what hardware you need to get to pick it up. But it definitely is well worth the experience once it's functional, because it's such a rewarding, great, and I can't wait to finish it, because it's just, I didn't want to take my headset off yesterday. I was getting sweaty and stuff, and I was like, I got to stop at some point and drink some water. But it was so much fun to be in that world and just experience Half-Life again and see all the things that are here, and it's great. I love it.